What's going on, guys? My name is Tyler Royke. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to take a ride in my Nissan 370Z, and I'm going to share the 3 things that I actually hate about this car with you. So let's take it for a spin. So before I share with you the 3 things that I actually hate about the Nissan 370Z and my experience owning it so far, I want to share a little background with you so that you understand where I'm coming from. My experience driving cars is not limited to like 3 or 4 cars. I've literally driven, I'd say hundreds of cars, because I'm confident the number's over 200, so we'll leave it at that. I've driven hundreds of cars, different brands, different kinds. I have a reasonably vast experience behind the wheel of different cars, even different sports cars, even some that are what you would consider a rival to the Nissan Z, such as the Porsche Boxster, the BMW Z4, etc. I've driven some of the rivals to this car, so I can understand the differences just from the feel of driving, which is what I'm speaking of. And then also my ownership experience. I've owned several cars which I've spent a considerable amount of time behind the wheel of, and it's my intention that the 370Z would become one of them. It's only a car I recently bought, but I do intend to keep it for the foreseeable future, at least for a solid year or so, and put some nice miles on it and get some more time behind the wheel. So having said that, here's a list of some of the cars that I have ownership experience with, just to give you an idea. At one point I had a daily driver. It was a BMW 335i Coupe, which, I mean, in my opinion, you park that car side by side with this car, you would probably think that they're rivals, but the truth is those cars are very different. There's some pros to a Z for sure, but there's a lot that I did like about the 335, and the fact is they're very different cars though in the way that they drive. Completely different, in fact. I believe once you know how to drive manual, then you can go out and drive any manual car, but the fact is each manual car is going to have a different feel to it. A manual Toyota is going to feel a lot different than a manual BMW. They're going to have completely different feels in the way they shift. So that leads me to the first thing, which is I really hate the way the Nissan 370Z shifts. And I've got a 6-speed model, so I've got the manual gearbox. What I was not really expecting with it was how difficult it is to shift smoothly in this car. Now, that being said, it's not because lack of skill. I can do it, but I'm comparing it to all my other experiences in manual cars. For whatever reason, this car in particular, I feel like is one of the more difficult cars I've driven in terms of being able to master a smooth shift in it. And to me, that's kind of incredible. I never would have really thought that would have been a thing. But like, for instance, if I'm comparing it to a manual Porsche Boxster or manual BMW, I mean, the feel of the way it shifts and being able to do so smoothly is just totally different. And so, for instance, I'm going to shift down into 2nd gear. And actually, there's no one behind me. I'm going to stop and go to 1st. I want to show you, if you're not really attentive to detail, this is what happens. So I'm off in 1st gear, and you heard a noise in the back, and that's what happens. It sounds freaking crazy, but if you don't time it right, you hear this crazy noise behind it. And at first I thought there was something wrong with the car, and then I got online and looked this up, and like literally anyone who buys a 370Z that's manual like posts on the forum, and they think there's something wrong with their car until they realize it's the nature of the beast and how it shifts. You just got to get the timing on point with it. There's not really a room for error. It's like either you let off the clutch at the exact right time, or you're going to get this popping noise in the back, and that's part of the experience with it, apparently. So the second thing that I hate about the 370Z is the road noise that you get in the car, especially while driving closer to highway speeds. It's very, very noisy inside the cabin, which I guess I really shouldn't have expected anything less, because the fact is it is a Nissan, it is a sports car. But again, I'm referencing my experience in other cars, and even cars that would be a rival to this car. And that being said though, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I hate this car. I'm picking out literally looking at every detail of this car and saying like, what do I actually hate about it? There's a very small number of things, and that's one of them, is the road noise. It's really loud in here. You have to really crank the volume up on the stereo if you're just cruising on the highway, taking it easy, just so you can actually hear what you're listening to. Especially with me, I like audiobooks, so it's a very different experience than driving a German car. And even, funny enough for me, my Corvette, in my opinion, my experience, the Corvette is a better driving car, not in speed, not in anything like that, but just the way it drives. Like, the Corvette's not noisy like this when you drive it. It's kind of crazy. It is raw, and you want to have that raw element in a sports car, but it's just, this car in particular is very noisy. I wouldn't have expected it to be this raw. I would have expected that more from a Nismo, not a regular 370Z model. So again, it doesn't take away from the experience, just it's not something I was expecting. I would have expected it to be a little more refined than what it appears to be in my driving experience. And I think you can probably hear it now on the video. The amount of road noise we're getting is pretty crazy. And then the third and final thing that I hate about the Nissan 370Z is the lack of trunk space. And that's not normally something I would say, but if you look at the trunk, the way it's configured compared to almost any other vehicle is just ridiculous. There's not a lot of usable room in the back. Yes, there's enough for a couple of good sized bags, but the way the trunk's laid out, it's like it cuts in where the wheel walls are at, and it really takes away from the usable trunk space. So the fact is, there's really not a lot of it, especially looking back at my past ownership experience when I had a BMW 335i Coupe. Again, you park those cars next to each other and you would think, wow, these cars are pretty similar. No, they're very different. And if we're talking about this point in particular, the BMW 335i Coupe has a ton of usable trunk space, even the ability to fold down the two rear seats, which this car doesn't have either, to utilize that space. And I was actually surprised because I had never seen the back of a 370Z before I bought this car. And of course I didn't buy the car for its trunk space, okay, for those who are going to say something about that. But on the same token, I have a Corvette Z06 2008 model. I wasn't expecting that the trunk space would be significantly less than this car, so that surprised me. So if I'm looking from terms of practicality, ironically to me, the 2008 Corvette Z06 I have is a way more practical car, just in terms of like what you can actually fit in it if you want to go somewhere. So I just found that pretty interesting from such a car that I feel like a lot of people use these on a daily basis, so I would have expected a little more utility from it. So again, not a deal killer for me, I still have it, but just a surprise. So that being said, I'd like to end with saying that I by no means hate the Nissan 370Z. I like this car a lot. So that's not the point of this video. The point is, out of everything I love about it, someone asked me, Tyler, what don't you like about the car? Well, those are the three biggest things. Anything beyond that, I'm just getting like nitpicky at that point. So to me, those were the three big things, because all three of those things are a real utility sort of issue. And when I say issue, again, it's by comparison of what else is out there, what else you could be driving, the experience being different. I'm not saying that it's an issue that Nissan is going to fix with this car, because it is what it is. And to me, if you love cars like I do, you buy it for the experience, not because it has, you know, the most this, the most that, the smoothest this. Like, each car's different, it's got its own character. Those three things I talked about are part of the character of this car. So again, I love the 370Z as a car. Those are just the three things that if I had to point out that I particularly don't like about it, that's it. Anyway, I want to thank each and every single one of you for watching the video, especially if you stayed all the way through. Do me a favor, if you appreciated me sharing this video with you, give me a thumbs up, like the video, leave me a comment below, let me know what else you would like to see me do with this car in the future. And if you haven't already, please, please, please hit that subscribe button, because in order for me to continue making these videos, I need your support. I need to know that people are standing behind me, wanting to see the content and wanting to see what else we can do together as we continue on this journey forward in the future. So until next time, I look forward to seeing you on the next video.